It's Thursday, March 29th, and you're listening to the Geek at Geek News Central show number 754, sponsored in part by GoDaddy.com. Save 25% on a fourth-generation hosting account by using the promo code CES2. Geek News Central is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Hey, folks, got a great show lined up for you tonight, and ready to rock and roll here. You know what comes next. Strap in. Here it comes.
No-go for the Geek News Central podcast. Digital archive recorders. Microphone. Video feed. Web browser. RSS data stream aggregator. Interflux Toddism suppressor.
All right. I'm confused.
Host readiness check.
Welcome to the show.
The Geek News Central podcast is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to go. Cue Todd in
5.
Button, who's got the button?
4.
There's no cause for alarm.
3.
Everybody hold on to something.
2.
Just press the button.
1.
showtime.
Aloha and welcome to the Geek News Central podcast, coming to you as live as it can be from the beautiful state of Hawaii via the Geek News Central studio overlooking Greater Honolulu. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Of course, my name is Todd Cochran. I want to encourage you to get over to geeknewscentral.com. Check out all the great content over there. Of course, check out our archive podcast available via the podcast link on the website. And really, it's simple. When you get over to GNC, all you really have to do is we got a little bit more here on the screen than I anticipated, is to subscribe to the show. There's a orange box in the second column of the website, and all you got to do there is grab an RSS feed, subscribe via iTunes, Zune, and, of course, subscribe to all the shows. We've got this show produced every Monday and Thursday night. Of course, we got the special media events feed that has content in there on a periodic basis. We've got Saturday Morning Tech, and that's me with some folks. The Gadget Professor with Don Bain, and of course, Robot Underpants with Langley. And actually, one of Langley's oftentimes co-hosts is in the chat room tonight. Hey, Eric Rice. Spin, how you doing tonight? And of course, we want to welcome, see Cliff's in the chat room tonight as well. And of course, whoops, it helps if I push the right doggone button, shouldn't it? There we go. Trying to run the promo 3 times this morning or this evening. But so anyway, get over to geeknewscentral.com, check out the site, sign up for the newsletter and everything else. Well, I tell you, it's here we are. We're Thursday night. I'm going to be flying out Sunday. Got a long one, 9-hour and 40-minute flight to Newark. Transfer airplanes and then back to Indianapolis. It's going to suck big time because I don't think my upgrade's coming through. Looked at the upgrade list tonight and it didn't look promising. So, Coach, I am all the way for 9 hours and 40 minutes. I know you feel sorry for me, but I'll be out in Indy all next week. So probably will be no show Monday night. I think by the time I get in, I think it's going to be too late. I guess I'll play it by ear and see what happens because I don't think I get into Indianapolis until like 6:30 or 7, some ridiculous time by the time I get to hotel, and it'll be really late. So if I do something, it'll be short. If not, don't miss me on Monday night. But just one of those things where travel interfered too much. Usually it doesn't. Usually I get in early enough. It's not a big deal. But this flight that I had to do and the way I had to get there just seems like it was takes a lot longer. But, hey, if you want to reach out to the show, it's real easy to do. All you got to do is reach out on Twitter at Geek News. Of course, you can email me here, geeknews@gmail.com. Voicemail hotline, of course, available 24 hours a day is 619-342-7365. So, in other words, just reach out, touch me. If you got any comments on the show tonight, definitely will appreciate it. Of course, you can watch the show post-show on the Tech Podcast channel on either Roku, Boxy, Samsung Smart TV, or Google TV. Of course, you can listen in anywhere around the world. And, make sure, again, to get subscribed. Okay, let me go ahead here and just make a comment. Now, for those of you that are, and I might as well mention it since Cliff's in the house tonight on the chat room. If any of you are podcasters or bloggers, if you do YouTube stuff, if you make any type of content, you may want to consider going to Blog World, New York City. And matter of fact, I've been talking with Cliff last couple of times here in the past week. And he's got a good line of podcasting tracks 24 on all that they're going to be announcing here in a few days. I know that they just put up their first podcast. I think that's up on the Blog World site now, but announcing some things that are going on with Blog World, which are exciting. So I thought I'd mention that. So if any of you are up to it, just definitely check out blogworld.com and considering going out to NYC. Hey, my team is working on some big changes coming to PowerPress. There's been some major changes by Apple to the RSS spec. So I was talking with Angelo late this afternoon. He's hoping, and I don't know if he's going to be ready, but I'm hoping tomorrow we might be ready to do a short beta test with it. He's got to do some major, there's some major changes. So we will probably be rolling a pretty big update to PowerPress, and just to really kind of take care of everything that Apple's done. I'm not going to talk too much about that now. We'll talk about it when we roll the rev and what we've got planned, so those of you content creators can look forward to that coming out. Saturday Morning Tech, got a good lineup for you on Saturday, so definitely tune in 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. Of course, it'll be bright-eyed 6 a.m. here in Honolulu when we do that, so I'll have a team of people on Saturday. Hey, I want to take just a moment here. Of course, I want to thank one of our sponsors. I want to thank the folks over at GoDaddy.com for being a longtime sponsor here. Got lots of great deals this month. They're coming to an end. And, of course, here we are, this is the last show of Geek News Central for the end of the month. So our March specials are going away just in a few days. So if you want to get a free private registration with a domain purchase, it's a $9.99 value for free. Use the code March4. You can get $7.99 first year only by using the promo code COFEB3. Matter of fact, I used a couple of those last night. And offer, of course, we've got the 25% offer on the 4th generation hosting still going on by using the promo code CES2. Being promised some new promo codes when we go to NAB, maybe some better deals. But right now we got this 25% offer on web hosting plans of 12 months or more. CES2 is the code. And of course, if you want to check out all the codes available, all you got to do is really go over to geeknewscentral.com/GoDaddy. Got all my codes there where you can save all the money in the world. And thanks for GoDaddy for being a longtime sponsor here at GNC. Well, what else? Again, the NAB stuff is coming up here in a couple of weeks. Excited about that. Going to be out, and it's going to be kind of a middle-of-the-road show. We're going to go check it out, see what's new. Got a few interviews planned, but it's going to be more and be kind of scoping out what's new in the space and in the tech gear side and looking at that. So we'll be bringing that coverage to you as well. All right, let me go ahead here and remind you all that you can pick up Ohanaware, pick up stuff from GNC by going to cafepress.com/Ohana store. Got a lot of stuff in the stack for you tonight, and it was an interesting day here in Hawaii. It seems like I spent a huge amount of time on the phone, and so I wasn't really watching what was going on in the tech space most of the day until late this afternoon when I kind of started to think about the show tonight. But one thing that's crossed all headlines and on almost all websites, it's not really technical in nature, is the $540 million lotto jackpot that is coming up with MegaMillions. And, I had to call my mom. And, of course, Hawaii, we don't have any lottery. So I told my mom, buy me $20 worth of Quick Picks, and she did. And so, I'll be in Michigan to pick up my money next week. Yeah, right. But, probably money flushed down the drain in the scheme of things, but you just can't hardly pass up a $540 million jackpot. But here's some odds. All right. And, these odds really don't even make economic sense at all. But the folks over at Gizmodo put out some odds on what it would, what your chances are as compared to other things. So you've got about a 4,464 to 1 chance of getting a chainsaw injury. And believe me, I've ran chainsaw before, and I can understand why the odds are pretty high on getting a chainsaw injury. There's a 19,556 to 1 odds on getting a fireworks injury. and of course an 88,000 to 1 in being able to date a supermodel. Now, if you're out golfing and it's raining and thunder and lightning, you've got a 576,000 to 1 chance of being struck by lightning. Now, who would ever think of suffocating in bed? But there's a 2 million to 1 chance that you'll actually suffocate and die in bed before you'll win the lottery. So it's here's even some better odds. Killed by the escape of radiation from a nearby nuclear power station, 10 million to 1. Dying in an airplane crash, 11 million to 1. And yes, it is a whopping 175.7 million to 1 odds before you have a chance in winning that $540 million. Well, all it takes is one, right? So anyway, but probably the best thing for most of us to do is to keep that money in our pockets. But how many of you went out there and got a lottery ticket? I know you just had to, even if it was just for $1, and but I think I play lottery like twice a year if I'm lucky. I'm just not around to do it. All right, let's go ahead and get into the first techie article. And someone was saying in the chat, can I call in, please? We don't have call in to this show. This show is a solo show where I basically go it alone. And generally, people are asleep in the middle of the night, not awake when I'm doing this show. But we appreciate your wanting to call in. We do have some events where we do on Saturday Morning Tech. We have a chance to participate from time to time when we do hangouts where people can join in on a hangout. But no call-ins tonight. Thanks. All right, there's an article over on PC Mag talking about some quotes that were made by some folks that should really make all of us sit up a little bit and scratch our heads. And we invest a lot in the Department of Defense, and there's a lot of money spent there. But when I see a title on an article saying that the United States is losing the war on hackers, where a top FBI cyber cop thinks the country is losing the war, I'm thinking to myself, what war? But then again, going into probably what none of us will ever know because no one will ever talk about it, I'm sure that there is this huge battle going on to try to penetrate our defense computers, probably our governmental systems. I know there's huge attacks going on with businesses. And I've got an article a little later in the show tonight talking about how we may have all already been invaded and we just didn't know it by having Chinese chips in our computers. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the Wall Street Journal has basically said that the U.S. law enforcement community, led by the FBI, thinks, again, that it's losing some sort of war with hackers. And that has to make all of us sit here and really think about, what they're gaining access to. And we all know that generally hacking type of stuff is oftentimes socioeconomic. They're trying to capture drawings, or they're trying to capture information sheets, or, it's about the capture of technology and copying it and then beating us at our own game. But I'm hoping that those on the friendly side of the fence are ramping up and bringing resources to task to stop any type of hacks on our governmental infrastructure. I think corporate America is well aware of it, but oftentimes we don't hear about stuff because they just don't report it, and I'm sure it's an embarrassment when something does get breached. But I wonder at some point if companies will start becoming more open. Of course, oftentimes companies are just flayed open, and people can see right inside of the guts of their business because it's just basically pulled out and made available for everyone to see. And oftentimes, they don't want that to be the case, but oftentimes companies are made a public example of for whatever reason. And it's difficult to hide, but I'm sure for every company that gets exposed, there's probably 100 that are trying to keep quiet about a breach to their security. Nothing is secure. If a crook wants in, they're going to get in. It's just being able to limit the amount of damage that they do while they are in. One of the articles written over Geek News Central this week was done by Kim, one of our writers over there. And this is, and it's kind of a interesting new. I don't normally do a lot of reviews on apps, and the folks over at Frequency had reached out to me and asked me to do the review. As a disclaimer, Geek News Central is being listed on the Frequency app. So I basically told sent an email to our writing team. I said, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this review. They basically have, given the show a listing. So go through and please, do a fair review and write it up. And so Kim went in and used it for a couple of days. So there's a good review on this app. And I have to say, and, all things aside, I've been playing with this for a little while. And where I've been intrigued is I linked it to my Twitter feed and my Facebook feed. And when I have it on my Facebook feed, it basically pulls out links to videos that people are posting in their Facebook feeds. And so far, pretty good stuff. And the Twitter has been kind of in between. I would say that there's a fair amount of junk in the mix with the good stuff. But that's where I've been using this thing the most is watch, videos that have been placed in my Facebook feed by people that are friends of mine. And then same thing on Twitter. So if you get a chance, it doesn't cost anything. The app is free. I don't know how they're making any money, to be honest with you, because they're not putting any advertising in it. But definitely check the iPad app Frequency out. I don't know if they have an Android app or not, but I do know it's, of course, on iOS. So definitely check it out with your iPad and let me know what you think about it. You can subscribe to RSS feeds as well through the website directly. You can't do it on the actual app, which to me was a little bit of an irritant when I was using it. But Kim has a full rundown of what the app can do. All right, let me go ahead and switch gears here. It's a good article over at Tech Dirt. And this is talking about the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency, who is basically coming out with new quote-unquote guidelines about GPSs in our vehicles. Now, I think probably a large number of us have a GPS. I'll be honest with you, GPS has made me very lazy. When I travel to a city, I used to do all this research. I used to print out the map routes, and I don't even do that anymore. I either use my phone or I actually use my Garmin GPS that I have. And, I rely on it to get me where I need to go. And believe me, it's a stress reliever because I really don't even have to, think about it. All I got to do is make sure I've got my hotel and every local place I'm going to visit already kind of in my address book. And I just punch it in and away we go. But the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency is coming out with some new guidelines where they're saying, essentially, this is what they want GPS providers to do. They want folks to they wanted to change it up so that when you're driving, on a GPS now, basically the road moves and the car stays still. Well, they want to change it so it more updates like a slideshow instead of having it to be moving. They're saying there's all kinds of driver distraction studies that have went on, and that the refresh rate should not be more than half a second. And and when there's characters of text put on the GPS, that you should not have more than 30 characters of text because people can't easily see that and read it without becoming too distracted. And they go on and on and on and on here with the guidelines. And let's be straight up. I remember the old days and having the old folded up map sitting on my lap, or worse yet, an atlas put up against the steering wheel and doing one of these numbers. Whereas now, either if I'm using my phone or using the Garmin, it's just talking to me and I just turn. I don't even really have to look at the GPS. But they went all these changes. So I guess that's what our taxpayer dollars are going for, is them making suggestions on how GPSs are supposed to be implemented. And I don't know if by law the GPS providers have to do this, but if they do, you're going to want to keep a hold of your older GPS and not upgrade, because they're essentially making the GPS systems, they're going to make them useless with these new guidelines. So anyway, it just goes on and on and on, and it's pretty comical. You can tell this is coming out of a government agency, once again trying to tell us what to do with our lives and how to how to drive, I guess. Well, Tim Cook did something Steve Jobs never did. Tim visited a Foxconn factory over the past day or two, and they made some announcements about improving workers' conditions and salaries and housing and a variety of different things. So I'm sure they put on a good dog and pony for him, and this to me looks like more of a PR type of move by Apple. But they did announce that they're going to be hiring more people. They're going to be reducing the excessive overtime the Chinese workers are having to work. I guess they say if you work over 60 hours, that's excessive overtime. I'm having to put in excessive overtime. Can I hire some more workers so I only have to work 49 hours a week? Yeah. Anyway, more like 100 hours a week, and of course weekends too. So some of us work as many hours as some of those Chinese workers, but it's by choice. It's by choice. It's not because I do have to. I got to keep employees on the payroll and employees fed. So funny. Or anyway, so we'll keep an eye out and see what happens with this. All right, those of you that have a Spotify account, if you are pleased by still getting unlimited songs with a free account, the folks over at Engadget are saying that you're going to still be able to get unlimited songs. So there was a 6-month deadline that Spotify was basically up against, and they basically have decided to continue the free version of their service. And so that's cool. I wonder why I'm paying if we can still get a free version. I'm paying for a Spotify account, but if you don't want to deal with the ads, then you can pay for the service. I have, and so basically what we do is we have it running. I have some Sonos wireless speakers, one here in the studio, one in the living room that's actually tied to my big speakers, my Bose speakers in the living room, and then one in the bedroom. So I can kind of basically, when no one's here at the house, like for me, I can kind of mission control the music in the house. And then when my wife's in the bedroom and she only listens to her music, she can set it up and listen to hers, because we can zone it out. And so I guess one of the reasons that I like it is that they have a lot of foreign content or foreign music on it, which my wife likes. But anyway, you still get unlimited songs for free as long as you're willing to listen to the advertising. Hey, quick announcement by Best Buy. They're saying that they're going to close 50 of their big box locations. Apparently, Amazon's making an impact here. And I wonder if Best Buy is going to go the way of CompUSA and other stores. That's really all we got left here in Honolulu is Best Buy. Of course, we got Sears and we have Macy's and some of the other, but they're not a big box electronics store. It would be pretty devastating if we lost the Best Buy here in Hawaii, because shipping is so ridiculous that it's just as cheap for me to go into Best Buy and buy something as to have something shipped in, because I'm going to pay for that extra cost one way or the other, unless I'm back in the mainland and I bring stuff back. And that's what I often do to save time, is I bring a second suitcase back with stuff in it. All right, Chrome has hit version 18. Yes, the numbers continue to rack up. What's going to happen when they get to Chrome like version 152? Is it really going to make sense to call it Chrome 18? But Chrome 18 has made some improvements to the GPU accelerated graphics. So they've made some changes to that. And they've improved some stuff on the WebGL, gets a new look with some new software, which will help those of you with older computers access 3D type of web content. So I haven't seen too much 3D web content yet. If you guys see any 3D web content, fire me a link, all right? Fire that over to me here at geeknews@gmail.com. Of course, as a reminder here, you can reach me at Twitter at geeknews. Email again is geeknews@gmail.com. And, of course, show hotline at 619-342-7365. All right, over on Ogizmo, one thing I always find how many of you, when you have some cash in your pocket and you pull your phone out, and what happens to me is I have a Mophie juice pack on my phone. So I guess when my phone is in my pocket and I have money up against it, if it gets just a little bit damp, I find that when I pull my phone out of my pocket, the cash has a tendency to come with it. And if I'm not careful, I'm sprinkling, fives and tens on the ground and making someone's day. Well, I guess a lot of people have run into this issue. So now they've come up with a iPhone money clip, and it is corny as it looks. And I'm going to show this to you. It's over on Gizmo. It looks to me, for those of you that aren't running a case, that this might be pretty slick. And I'm serious. I don't know how many of you have pulled money out when you pulled your phone out and accidentally dropped it, but at least in my instance, this is what happens with my specific. Maybe it's my case, but for $33, you can, if you're geeky enough and you want to have a money clip, you can do so. It's called the iPhone money clip, and it's available over on. Let's see if I can see the website that it's actually from. It's not some weird website. I have the link in the show notes for you, so you can check it out. Okay, moving on here. This is an article over on GigaOM. On the last show, we had talked about how Comcast had basically said that with having an Xbox in your home on a Comcast internet connection, that you are going to not be charged for any bandwidth being used for movies on demand that you were getting through the Comcast app on your Xbox. Specifically, they talked about their private, their private IP network. Well, apparently, some folks have said this was, or Netflix specifically said that this was anti-competitive in nature, and because Netflix streams from an external service, and so there was even their partners were like, "Hey, this sounds anti-competitive." So what they've done to kind of elude or stop the people from screaming about this anti-competitiveness, and basically it really is, because what it's going to allow people to do is they're going to say, well, I'm not going to get charged the bandwidth if I go watch a pay-per-view movie on my Xbox, whereas if I go watch the same movie or a different movie on Netflix, that's going to go against my bandwidth utilization. So they've changed and cut the reference to its private IP network in their notice that you're not going to get charged for that bandwidth. And so what they've done here is, I guess they're trying to fend off a lawsuit and trying to soften the rhetoric a little bit here. But we'll see what happens with this if Netflix and other companies come after them and say, hey, if you're going to give it away for free, your bandwidth away for free on that, you're going to have to give it to us. Quid pro quo. Time will tell on this, but I don't think Comcast thought this through when they initially made the initial first announcement. So we'll see where this leads and whether or not Comcast is going to get away with this or not. All right, many folks had seen in the Windows 8 initial consumer preview that Windows Media Center was missing. And quite frankly, I haven't used Windows Media Center in years. But apparently, Microsoft is trying to clear it up that Media Center is going to be in Metro when Windows 8 comes out. So those of you that use Windows Media Center, don't fret. You're going to be able to still continue to use it. It's going to be in the build, and you won't have to worry about using an alternative solution. All right, over on the makeuseof.com, and every once in a while, this site puts together a lot of how-tos, a lot of recommendations to different software applications. But one thing I don't pay a lot of attention to anymore, and I should, is really you've got hard drives running in your machine, and unless something is acting funny with your machine, you really don't know the health state of those drives. But makeuseof.com has some good, basically some links to some hard drive software applications that will basically check out your hard drives, your solid state drives as well, and basically do some tests and see what, based on the model of a hard drive you have, if it's living up to its spec, and what its health status is. So these things have come a long way as compared to some of the earlier disk checkers. But they've listed 2 here. They've listed Crystal, Disk Info, Speed using a disk bench. And those are the 2 tools that they recommend. So I have a link up in the show notes. I was actually playing with the Crystal Disk Info application, and it was really fast. It did a quick check and double check speeds and everything else. So it was cool. And what really kind of prompted me is on my TriCaster, I noticed that it was taking a little bit of time to essentially boot. It was a little longer than I thought it was supposed to. So I get a little nervous, and I basically wanted to check in. Really what ended up happening was on the TriCaster, and this really doesn't apply to a lot of computers anymore, but the TriCaster has an actual defrag utility, and it basically, I figured out I needed to do a defrag, and I did that for about an hour prior to the show, and got it kind of cleaned up and the performance back up. But anyway, if you want to check out the health of your hard drives, you can do so. All right, let me go ahead here and switch gears for just a second, and we'll come back to the tech content in a minute. I do want to take just a second here and thank our sponsor, GoToMeeting. You know, one thing I was able to do, matter of fact, I had a meeting with Cliff. Talked about Cliff was in the chat room. I think he's still here. Had a meeting with him last week, or was it earlier this week? I lose track. And actually, it was earlier this week, and we did a GoToMeeting session, and I was actually in my car with my iPad, and basically there was 3 of us on the call. There was Rick from Blog World, there was Cliff, and myself, and so we could see really each other real well. We really wasn't even using the desk sharing portion where I was looking at Cliff's desktop. It was more of a kind of an online conferencing thing. It worked out fantastic. And literally I was on my Verizon connection, and it worked perfectly well. And before, when I've used the iPad and GoToMeeting, I've used it in a sense where I was actually looking at someone's screen, more than I was actually looking at the people with HD faces. But it was kind of cool to be able to use it just like that. And, that's one of the reasons why I found GoToMeeting to be just an absolute powerhouse, and one of the things I keep in my toolbox, especially GoToMeeting with HD faces. It really truly lets you meet face to face from anywhere in the world. And again, it takes just a webcam or your iPad or your Android device with the camera on it to click and collaborate in a group session. And you can see attendees, of course, eye to eye. So, it's easy to use, and just basically can get started with just a click of the button. So what I want you to do is I want you to start hosting your own face-to-face online meetings. And it's real easy to do. And we're going to give you an opportunity here, if I can type this right, is to be able to go over to GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, that nice big orange Try It Free button. And when you get the next page, you're going to enter your name, your email address, and enter the promo code podcast. So again, visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code podcast. We want to thank the folks at Citrix GoToMeeting for being a longtime sponsor here of the show, and definitely give that a try. Get that free demo. Okay, let's go ahead and move back into the tech side of things here, and close this window out. I got a good stack of stuff remaining. Hey, if you were thinking about picking up a Kindle Fire, Amazon is offering some refurbished Kindles already on sale, and they're only $139. And so this is pretty amazing that here we are. It's just been a few short months since the Kindle Fire has been announced. But if you want to pick one up, $139, get a refurbished Kindle Fire. I have the link up to it in the show notes, or you can go to Amazon.com and just do a search for refurbished units. And this is a great way to pick a Kindle up pretty cheap. The folks over at Android Central at AndroidCentral.com, the news today out of the Android space was about 10 different Android tablets have been updated to support a new version of Hulu. So if you are a Hulu user, whether it be a subscription, if you're subscribed, or if you're actually just using the free application, It's been a while since we've heard from them. So if you have one of the following tablets, if you have a Vizio 8-inch HTC Flyer, LG G Slate, an Acer Aciona, a Toshiba Thrive, a Motorola XY board, a Motorola Zoom, an Asus Triple E Pad Transformer Prime, or Asus Triple E Pad Transformer, you're going to be getting this new Hulu update. And of course, if you're subscribed, it's going to cost you $7.99 a month. But pretty slick. And what it really just kind of looks to me like almost like the Netflix interface. But easy to find the content that you like. But definitely check it out and update your Hulu app, or download it if you've got one of those tablets. All right, a little earlier in the show, we talked about, the FBI basically thinking they're losing the battle to hackers. And I mentioned that we would be talking a little bit about some potential issues with Chinese components. So the folks over at Gizmodo have a pretty good article talking about Chinese-made electronics could be bugged. And this was referenced from a former head of U.S. counterterrorism. Check this out. According to Richard Clark, who warned everyone about a spectacular al-Qaeda attack before 9/11, he says all electronics made in China could contain backdoors that would allow Chinese hackers to spy and attack anyone they want. He claims that these traps may be hidden in every device from your iPhone and Android phones to every iPad, laptop, and computer. He says every TV or anything else made in China. His claims may sound preposterous, but what he says is strong evidence. He says, I'm about to say something people think is an exaggeration, but I think the evidence is pretty strong. Every major company in the United States has already been penetrated by China. So if you think about this, and you think about where your computers are made, and where monitors are made, where your iPads are made, where your iPhones, Android, just about everything that you're carrying in your pocket, it's made on a Chinese assembly line, and the parts from within are probably made in China. And I don't know about you, but that scares the living crap out of me to consider, or to think that the chips that they're putting in these devices could contain code essentially to call home the mama and open up back doors and let people in your device. Now, I would find, I think the more I think about that, and if you think about the discussion with this, and to think that this might be the situation because of the, what he's saying here, it seems pretty remarkable. You would think that Apple or Android, if there's something like that that would exist, that they would have been able to find it. But if you think about it real heavily, if it's not part of the code, not part of the firmware, but yet there's something in the device that basically allows people in a back door, that makes you go, holy crap. It really does. So, again, this is what this guy is saying. And I can only talk, basically talk to what he has to say here, because I would think that if that was the case, and you would think that it would have been found out by now. And if they found out about it, it would be such a huge stink that people would be just like boycotting getting any type of gear out of China at all. But what do you guys think? What do you think on this one? I'd love to hear your feedback. And you think about the potential here of what this guy's saying. We don't have to worry about this whole privacy rant I went on the last show. I mean, we don't even have to even worry, because that's null and void if there's a back door and the Chinese have been getting in. I don't know. I don't know if I should believe this or even consider it, because it seems like a pretty big stretch. But again, there's 1 billion people in China and plenty of people to do stuff, and makes you go, it really, really does. So I have a link to this article in Gizmodo, But this guy, wow, to say this is pretty huge. All right, you know that the Surface, the Windows Surface. Well, I just saw a video tonight that I'm going to link up in the show notes, and this was over on the Awesomer. That's the name of the website, the Awesomer. Let me actually bring this up for you. And he basically talks about an application called the NUIVerse, NUIVERSE, and it's using the Windows table to show you an absolutely amazing demonstration of an astronomy application that I would just about. Oh, what's going on here? How come it didn't come up? Let me try that again. Oh, there we go. Let me bring this up so you can see this. This is pretty remarkable. And basically, you can see him moving the universe around, zooming in on different things. It's got a cool control panel. And as he says, it puts the cosmos at your fingertips like never before. And this is really awesome stuff. I mean, it is. And I understand why he calls his blog the Awesomer. So they're saying that of course, with the table, the table is about $8,400. So it's not like something any of us are going to run out and buy. But if they would make this app work on an iPad, that would be pretty cool in itself to be able to do that. But you can, you got to watch the video. This is, okay, I'll just say it up straight up. This is the video to watch tonight. If there's anything I link up in the show notes, you got to go look at this. Any of you that have any inclination about astronomy or want to study it more, don't tell me that this wouldn't be the most cool iPad app ever. I don't want the table. I just want to put it on my tablet. It's pretty cool. And I don't know how much the software costs that's driving this thing, but if the app was $99, I'd still pay for it. That's how cool it really was. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit of space news here. A European cargo spacecraft has docked at the International Space Station late Wednesday. The ATV-3, known as Eduardo Almeida, docked at the airport of the Zvezda service module, bringing up 6.6 metric tons of propellant supplies and other cargo. The ATV will remain docked to the International Space Station for up to 5 months and will help reboost the station. Of course, we got to remember we've got a launch coming up here, I believe, at the end of this month. No, at the end of April, that is going to be the first commercial launch with basically a cargo spacecraft that is going to be attempting to dock to the International Space Station, a commercial one for the very first time. So we'll be watching that as that time approaches. Here we're on Slashdot. There's a move afoot by many sites to require you to either use Facebook, Twitter, or your Google login to actually leave a comment on a blog site. And is really as appealing that is, I really have not bought into it completely here for Geek News Central. So I'm looking for a little feedback from all of you. Gawker Media has basically, now if you go to that website, you go to any of their properties, and Gawker has a lot of different .coms. If you go over to any one of those and you want to leave a comment on their website, you have to log in via Facebook, Twitter, or your Google login. What do you guys think about that versus using the on-site login stuff? I know a lot of sites are using it. I'm just kind of curious. What do you guys think? Do you think this would be a good move for Geek News Central? Do you think it would make it easier to comment on articles? Because, again, we're still using the default WordPress commenting system. And I've even heard Google Plus is coming out with their own commenting system, and I think I would be more inclined to use that instead of Facebook or Twitter. But just looking for some feedback from the audience here, the Johanna. Those of you who are a long-time listener to the show, let me know what you think. I think this would be a good move or not. All right, the president has announced today a $200 million big data plan. And basically what they're going to be doing is they announced what's called the Big Data Research and Development Initiative. And this is being backed by more than $200 million in commitments to start. And through this big data initiative and associated monetary investments, the administration promises to improve the tools and techniques needed to access, organize, glean discoveries from huge volumes of digital data. So they're saying here that as part of the government's announcement on this today, the National Institute of Health has announced that the world's largest set of data on human genetic variation produced by the International Thousand Genome Project is now freely available on Amazon Web Services. And additionally, the Department of Defense said it would invest approximately $250 million annually across military departments, a series of programs to make access to data easier for DoD folks as well. So I'm just wondering here how the government is going to be able to do this. And, I don't think they're going to be able to do this on their own. And, they promised, the president promised when he came into office that the government would be open and they would make stuff more freely available. And, that really hasn't happened to this point. So I'm wondering here if this is what maybe his answer to this, and maybe he's trying now finally to come through on a campaign promise to have an open government. I don't know what this really means here. So I'm going to do some more research on this and see what we can find out. But $200 million is a huge amount of money, and hopefully they spend it wisely and are able to open up some of the deep and dark archives of the government and make stuff that can be made available. So we'll see where this leads. But this is the first of the big data research and development initiative. All right, over on Times of India, there is an article about a new fossil that has been found that signals a new pre-human species. Now, this was a fossil foot that was found in Ethiopia, and it's a 3.4 million year old fossil. And what's interesting about this, and I saw a picture on a website, but this particular website does not have a picture. The foot is about like 4 inches. It's not very big. And they're classifying it as a new form of, see if I can find it here. Okay, so the newfound foot not only belonged to a different species, but also involved a distinctive mode of locomotion, which scientists are describing as equivocal. It clung to the trees and never adapted to terrestrial mobility outright. And it goes on and on about what this is, but it says that this new foot had a divergent, in other words, a toe that kind of went off to one side, similar to those to apes and gorillas for tree climbing. But they're pretty excited about this. The scientists are actually going ape crazy here. So this is big just because how old it is. And we have very few fossils from 3.7 million years ago. Of course, the Lucy species has been long talked about that they found in Ethiopia before. So we'll see here. This is definitely going to have scientists talking for a while. On the tech side, Google has announced a way to look at your activity. And this is kind of a cheesy way of basically seeing how many searches you've had, how many emails you've sent, how many you've received, and on and on and on. So basically it gives you some stats of how much you're using Google, how many hours you're spending on it. It looks to me like to be a little publicity stunt. Let me extract my data out Google and delete it so you don't have access to it anymore. That's not going to happen. But anyway, if you're curious to see what your monthly activity is, they've got this new tool. I'll have the link up in the show notes for you. All right, I've got a buddy who just bought a brand new Chevy Volt, and he is up to this point had a Prius. He had a Prius for 5 years. And, of course, I immediately had to look, touch, feel, smell, lift the hood, the whole 9 yards. And so it takes him, he's from his house to where he works is 28 miles. And the car will go, from what he's telling me, the Chevy Volt will go 38 miles if you're on a straight line without a charge. He has to go up and down several hills. So he basically gets about 30 miles to a charge before the motor has to start up and starts running it. So we were talking, and he basically has not charged the vehicle. He wants to run a full tank of gas through it to see what kind of mileage and what kind of recharging capability he has going downhill and everything else. So what he's told me has got me really kind of eye-opened here a little bit, and I wanted to share with you guys a little bit. So if you're in the mode or basically in the market for a car, here's one thing for sure. It does not pay to have a Chevy Volt unless you're going to be able to charge that bad boy at each place you go to. In other words, at your home, have a 220 volt charging station, and one where you work if you're less, especially if you're like 30 miles away. Because what he says is that his gas mileage actually is lower on his Chevy Volt than his Prius was when he's basically forcing it to use gas and trying to recharge the battery going down the hill. He said that when his Prius, of course, was gas assisted, that he would basically run the battery down, getting to the top of a hill, going down the hill, the battery would charge very quickly, and he'd be on battery. So he was getting about 51 miles to the gallon on his Prius. Now, obviously, the Chevy Volt was designed to be run on electric only, not to be used the motor so much. But in his case use, he has figured out real quick that he has to have a charging station at a different location. So I asked him, how come you didn't buy the Leaf? The Leaf's got about 100-mile range. And he says, well, it didn't look so good. It's smaller, less flare. And I will say that the Volt looks pretty nice. So basically what he's trying to do now is he's trying to get the location where he works to put in a charging station for electric vehicles. And he says if he does that, he can make it both ways without essentially having to go on gas. And so what I'm trying to get him now to do is once he does start putting it on 220 and have a separate meter, I want to say, okay, run that battery all the way down, charge it, let me know how many kilowatts you use to actually charge the car, and that we can kind of figure out what it's really costing to run that electric car here in Hawaii, because we pay 32 cents a kilowatt in Honolulu, as compared to many of you probably pay 8, 7, maybe as high as 11 cents in the lower 48. Matter of fact, I think we're up to 34, 35 cents a kilowatt. So it's going to be more to charge a vehicle here than it would be, of course, back in the mainland. But he's showing me his app. Of course, this thing's tied to OnStar, and it keeps track of everything. Of course, OnStar's come out recently with some family link programs where you can do real-time tracking of teens and gives you all kinds of good data. But we were looking at his little app and the information he could get. It was pretty remarkable what he could get. So I just wanted to share that with you on at least Mike's. Of course, so now I've got a close friend that's got a Leaf. That's, of course, Rob Greenlee's got a Leaf in Seattle. I've got a buddy here that's got a Volt. So we're going to be able to, I've got it, pretty tight in with both these guys, and we'll be able to have more detail as time goes on. And I'll keep you abreast of how their vehicles are working and, what it ends up being for charge cost and everything. I think we're all curious. But I asked him, he said, do you wish you would have bought another Prius? He says, well, not so far. He says, as long as I get this other charging station put in at his work, he's going to be good. Otherwise, it may not be as cost effective as his Prius was, just because he's 28 miles from his home. And again, the range on the Volt's 38 miles. So a flat range, and he's going up and down several hills. So he's not getting that. And the Volt doesn't charge as much going down the hill either, because it's a bigger battery. He was surprised that he wasn't getting that much of a charge back from it. Okay, we're here at 54 minutes. Got a bunch of stuff to get through yet. One thing that I want to share with you here is there was a great video. Essentially is there's, if you get your iPhone basically acquired by the police department and they want to look at it, your 4-pin password is not going to stop them. They're going to be able to get in just a couple of minutes. And for just a few dollars, police departments can buy software on a subscription basis that will basically unlock any device that's out there. So don't even, if you're doing a crime and you can't do the time, make sure it's not on your phone, because they're going to get into your phone if they need to. Very simply. And there's a quick demo that they showed on this video where basically they unlocked an iPhone in literally 2 minutes and were able to get right in. All right, the House today has voted to limit the FCC's power to make rules, set conditions on mergers. Of course, I think this is more of a vote by the House to just do this because they have a Republican majority. This bill is not going anywhere at all in the Senate, so they basically were grandstanding a little bit here because this is not going to cross over and get marked down and negotiated. They are not the Senate is not going to be as pliable in trying to take as much power away from the FCC. And of course, the White House has said they're not going to support it either. So, but anyway, interesting try by the folks in the House today. All right, World IPv6 Day is coming up on June 6th. But this time, instead of it being a single day, many companies are going to leave IPv6 up and running, and they're not going to shut it off. And many of the ISPs are going to be working with it. So those of you with Comcast and Time Warner, if you have a DOCSIS 3.0 cable modem, you're more than likely, as of June 6th, going to get issued a IPv6 address that'll backfill into the rest of your network, even your computers, if you have it set up and you've got a wireless router that's basically configured for this. D-Link and Cisco and all those folks have some IPv6 capable routers now. So if you've got a newer one, you may see, because they're going to start issuing IPv6 addresses, you may see your network kind of transform starting June 6th if you've got that stuff enabled on your router. So they're going to try to move forward. They're really running out of the IPv4 addressing scheme. So this will be the second year, and they're moving forward in a big way. Excuse me here. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and I believe he's still the CEO, of course, he has reported finding the Apollo 11 F1 engines deep in the Atlantic. They're in a depth of 14,000 feet of water, and he wants to get them out. So he's pretty excited, and they're going to attempt to recover these mammoth motors. And I don't know if they're still attached to any of the stage or how that works, but they're going to try to fish these babies out and restore them and put them in a museum. And it would be remarkable if they do that. Now, if you remember, a few years ago, they were able to, I can't remember who, was able to fish out an Apollo module that was by Grissom. It was the one that sunk. And his module is in a museum, I believe, in Texas. But Jeff Bezos is going to try to pull out these Apollo 11 motors. And I'm sure there's a lot of museums that are going to be lined up that are going to want these if they can. Hey, Langley, I see Langley in the chat. Welcome to chat tonight, my friend. How you doing? And Spin was in here a little earlier. So we had a good number of folks through tonight. So that's a lot of fun on the chat side. All right, haunting photos of Saturn's moon snapped by Cassini spacecraft, and these are up over on space.com, and it is pretty eerie. I'm going to show you, those of you that are on the video, I'm going to show you one of these, and let me bring it up. And this one isn't so haunting, but let's look at this one. It looks like jets shooting through the moon. It's pretty remarkable. If you were out there, and, on basically hitching a ride with Cassini and saw this, you wouldn't quite know what to think because, these moons aren't supposed to be doing weird stuff like this. But the theory is that there's an underground ocean of liquid water, and basically it's blowing through the southern base of the moon, and it's making Enceladus a potential spot for the existence of extraterrestrial microbiology. Micro life. All right. Oh man, can't speak tonight to save my life here. But anyway, pretty wild pictures. And I'll have the link up in the show notes. There's some more as well in this article over at space.com. Okay, as well, the a little bit of news here from Mars talking about some new images they've got, and they're trying to determine if lava or water caused some outflow channels on Mars. Have that link up in the show notes. One of the most important articles of the day today, and I actually should have had this in the beginning of the show, is one that was written, a guest post done by James Q. Crow. He's the CEO of Level 3 Communications, and he makes a pretty compelling point here. You know, the wireless guys, they're whining that they don't have enough bandwidth, but he's saying, hey, we've heard a lot about the pressing need for government action to free up more radio spectrum for wireless communications or to allow mergers or acquisitions purportedly aimed at the same goal. He says it's no surprise that this issue attracts attention in Washington when people can't use their mobile devices to make or receive calls or access content and data. They notice and they make themselves heard. And as the wireless consumer knows, service providers are struggling to meet the rapidly growing demand created by consumers' desire for innovative devices, applications, and content delivered wherever and whenever they want. But he says this is not an issue at all. He says, so why don't wireless companies, and I'm going to paraphrase here because he's got 2 or 3 of build up to this. He says, so why doesn't wireless companies pursue the obvious approach to adding more capacity? He says, why don't they just add more towers or more cells? He says if they did that, they would fix the connections because every cell is tied back to a wired connection. And if they put in more cells, they would basically have more than enough bandwidth and enough spectrum to handle it. He says, but the AT&Ts and the Verizons of the world are basically wanting the public to think that there's this huge crisis. And he says, it's not. All they got to do is put up more towers. He says, but they don't want to because more towers cost more money. And then if there's more towers up, then there's more room for competition. So he says it's a big scam. And he says that AT&T and Verizon reap large profits from the sale of wired connections, while companies like his, which he's with Level 3, have the capital and the desire to invest in wired connections are locked out of the market. And he says that he knows that from experience, he could offer a competitive wired connection alternative, but they say that ultimately they have to pay AT&T, Verizon, these wireless fees to have access to the network. So it doesn't make sense. So other companies want to compete, but they can't because AT&T and Verizon actually controls the spectrum. But he says AT&T and Verizon should not be given any more spectrum because there's enough available if they put up more towers. He's got a good argument here. So we'll see where this goes. This was over on Forbes.com. I'll have the link up in the show notes for you to check out. All right, last few articles tonight. One's over on Tort Freak. I guess the Pirate Bay, these guys haven't been paying their debt off, and the interest on their initial settlement, or actually fine that they were charged in 2006, has rose 60% up to about $11 million. It's a $4.06 million uplift because of interest payments, and because they're not able to find some of the Pirate Bay owners. They say that there is they're just going to keep racking up the dollars, and these guys say they're never ever going to pay the Sweden courts a dime. So I'm sure this will be an ongoing story over the years. CNBC is reporting half American households have drunk the Apple Kool-Aid. Wow. They're saying more than 50% of homes have an Apple device. Said 77% of households that earn at least $75,000 have it on their premises versus only 28% of under $30,000 homes. On the other hand, Democrats and Republicans are equally Apple smitten. 56% of the members of both parties have at least one of the company's products. And so 50% of us have drank the Kool-Aid and have an Apple device in our homes. Pretty remarkable if you think about it. All right, bicyclists, you ride a bike? Do you ever get worried about getting hit by a car in the dark? I'm sure you do. There's some new gloves. They're LED, and they light up when you want to turn the corner. You hold your arm up, and the light lights up, and you can see that you need to turn right or turn left, and it provides a little blinker there for you, and gives you some attention. It basically lets them know, and it really all it is it is an LED. It's not a reflector, so that's pretty cool, and lights up and flashes and lets people know that you want to turn right or turn left. All right, let me go ahead and open the email today and see what we've got for email. Did not have anything come into our voice hotline at 619-342-7365. And come on, email. Let's get with it here. And apparently I had it closed. And let me click on this and see what we've got here. Today's date is the 29th. And the last show was on the 26th. So I know where to go back to. Okay, so I got an email here from Miss MS Small Biz. He said the 14 best geeky and nerdy beers in existence. Well, thank you for sending that to me, MS Small Biz. I appreciate it. Got an email here from Joe, from Joe Cannon. He said, "Hey Todd, I heard your comments about vitamin E and beta carotene in your latest podcast. The info has actually been known since 1990s when research noted that not only were these nutrients not going to prevent heart disease or cancer, but beta carotene was found to increase lung cancer in smokers by 18 to 28%. He said, I run supplement-geek.com, and have been investigating supplements for over 10 years. So Joe, tell me, what do you recommend if you've been doing this for 10 years? What is the multivitamin stack that all of us should be taking? So here's what I want. I want something for my joints. I'm assuming you're going to use that clotazone or whatever it's called. It's basically that white vitamin, a supplement to help our joints. But what do you recommend for all of us for on the vitamin side? And I don't want to get into brands or anything like that because there's a lot of different brands and they have a full different price spectrum. But what do you recommend? Well, I'll definitely check your website over at supplement.geek.com. But right back to the show and tell me what should I be taking? I kind of have my stuff now, and you tell me what I'm taking, and I'll share with what I'm actually taking on the next show. Got an email here from Bob. He said, "Hey Todd, the New York Times announced this morning that they're ending their front page podcast on March 31st. He says, no article today on the print side, but you can listen to it on the podcast. He says, I'm really sorry to see it end, but I guess they don't believe in new media. One of the ironies is that big advertisers like Ford are moving towards new media. They are. So Bob, of course, is in Portland. And thanks for the thanks on the 750 shows. I do appreciate it, Bob. I guess that's it for tonight. And as always, it's been my pleasure to bring you the show here. And again, don't know if we're going to have a Monday show or not based on my flight out and what time I get into Indy and get into my hotel and everything else. If I'm really up to it, it'll probably be late, but it'll be short. One way, or maybe I can get someone to step in and do a guest appearance. Maybe I'll try to plan for that and see if anyone's up for it to be able to do it. That way you guys can have some fresh content in here and we get someone some exposure. But it's been my pleasure bringing the show tonight. As always, geeknews@gmail.com. My voicemail hotline is 619-342-7365. You can reach me at Twitter, @geeknews is the Twitter address. But we'll see you next time. Everyone take care and aloha.